Hello everyone and welcome to Minna no Nihongo, Lesson 8. In this lesson, we'll learn how to describe people, places, food, cities, and many other things using Japanese adjectives. You'll learn the difference between adjectives and na-adjectives, how to make them negative, and how to ask questions such as what is it like using どうですか and what kind of using どんな. These grammar patterns are used every day when talking about food, travel, friends, school, work, and daily life in Japan. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to say things like この街はきれいです. This town is beautiful. 奈良は有名な街です. Nara is a famous city. And この料理は美味しくないです. This food is not delicious. Let's begin Minna no Nihongo Lesson 8 and learn how to describe the world around us in Japanese. Before we can describe things in Japanese, we need to understand that Japanese adjectives are divided into two main groups. The first group is called I-adjectives. These adjectives usually end with a sound I. For example, 面白いです means it's interesting. 高いです means it's expensive or it's high. いいです means it's good. When using I adjectives at the end of a sentence, we simply add this to make the sentence polite. The second group is called na adjectives. Some common examples are きれいです meaning it's beautiful. にぎやかです meaning it's lively. And 静かです meaning it's quiet. Unlike I adjectives, these adjectives use na when they come before a noun. For example, きれいな街 means a beautiful town. 静かな部屋 means a quiet room. One important thing to remember is that Japanese adjectives already contain the meaning of to be. That's why we don't need an extra verb like is or are. We simply add this to make the expression polite. Learning the difference between I adjectives and na adjectives is the foundation for describing people, places, food, and many other things in Japanese. Now let's learn how to say that something is not a certain way. Just like in English, we say not expensive or not beautiful, Japanese adjectives also have negative forms. The good news is that the rules are very systematic. First, let's look at I adjectives. To make an I adjective negative, replace the final I with kunai. For example, 高いです becomes 高くないです. This means it's not expensive. Another example, おいしいです becomes おいしくくないです. This means it's not delicious. Next are na adjectives. For these adjectives, simply add じゃありません. For example, きれいです becomes きれいじゃありません meaning it's not beautiful. And 元気です becomes 元気じゃありません meaning I'm not well or I'm not energetic. There is one very important exception that every Japanese learner should remember. The adjective I, meaning good, does not follow the normal pattern. Its negative form is 良くないです not いいくないです This is because I originally comes from the older form 良い So いいです means it's good, but 良くないです means it's not good. As you continue studying Japanese, you'll use these negative adjective forms very often when expressing opinions, describing places, or talking about things you like and dislike. Once you master these patterns, you'll be able to describe things much more naturally and accurately. Now let's learn how to ask for descriptions using どんな. The word どんな means what kind of, and is used when we want to know the characteristics or qualities of a person, place, or thing. The basic pattern is どんな名詞, which means what kind of noun. Let's look at the example on the slide. 奈良はどんな町ですか? This means what kind of town is Nara? When answering, we usually use adjectives to describe the noun. For example, 有名な町です. It is a famous town. 静かな町です. It is a quiet town. 古い町です. It is an old town. Notice that 有名 and 静か are not adjectives, so they use na before the noun 町. Meanwhile, 古い is an i-adjective, so it connects directly to the noun without adding na. The expression どんな is extremely useful because it allows you to ask for detailed descriptions instead of simple yes or no answers. For example, どんな食べ物が好きですか? What kind of food do you like? どんな映画ですか? What kind of movie is it? どんな人ですか? What kind of person is he or she? As you learn more adjectives, you'll be able to give richer and more natural answers to questions that use どんな. Think of どんな as an invitation for someone to paint a picture with words and descriptions.
Now let's learn another very useful expression. どうですか?
While どんな asks for characteristics or descriptions, どうですか asks for someone's opinion, impression, or feeling about something. In other words, you're not asking, what kind of thing is it? Instead, you're asking, how is it? Or what do you think about it? Let's look at some common examples. この町はどうですか? How is this town? このレストランはどうですか? What do you think of this restaurant? 日本の生活はどうですか? How is life in Japan? When someone asks a question using どうですか, the answer is often an adjective expressing an impression or opinion. For example, 綺麗です. It's beautiful. 美味しいです. It's delicious. 楽しいです. It's fun. You can think of the conversation pattern like this. First, ask, この町はどうですか? Then, listen for an adjective in the answer. The other person might reply, 賑やかです. It's lively, or 静かです. It's quiet, or even 面白いです. It's interesting. One important thing to remember is that どうですか is extremely versatile. You can use it to ask about places, food, movies, travel experiences, school life, work, weather, and many other topics. Because of its flexibility, どうですか is one of the most frequently used question patterns in everyday Japanese conversation. Whenever you want someone's opinion or impression, simply remember, どうですか? Before we finish today's grammar points, let's do a quick review of the adjective patterns you've learned. Remember that Japanese adjectives are divided into two groups, i-adjectives and na-adjectives. For i-adjectives, the positive form is very simple. For example, 高いです means it's expensive. To make it negative, replace the final i with くない. So, 高くないです means it's not expensive. Next, let's review na-adjectives. For example, 静かです means it's quiet. To make it negative, add じゃありません. So, 静かじゃありません means it's not quiet. As you can see, each adjective group has its own pattern. That's why it's important to know whether an adjective belongs to the i-adjective group or the na-adjective group. Now let's review the special case we learned earlier. The adjective いいです means it's good. However, its negative form is 良くないです not いいくないです. This is one of the most common exceptions in Japanese, so be sure to memorize it. As you continue studying Japanese, you'll use these adjective forms again and again when describing people, places, food, experiences, and opinions. The more familiar these patterns become, the more naturally you'll be able to communicate in Japanese. Think of today's lesson as building the foundation for future conversations. Once these adjective patterns become automatic, expressing your thoughts in Japanese will become much easier and more natural. Congratulations! You've completed Minna no Nihongo Lesson 8. Today, you've learned some of the most important adjective patterns in Japanese. First, you learned that Japanese adjectives are divided into two groups,い-adjectives andな-adjectives. Each group follows its own grammar rules, so recognizing which type an adjective belongs to is an important skill. Next, you learn how to make adjectives negative. Forい-adjectives, use ごめんこないです. Forな-adjectives, use じゃじゃありません. And don't forget the special exception. いいです becomes よくないです, not いいくないです. You also learn two very useful question patterns. Use どうですか when asking for someone's opinion or impression, and use どんな名詞ですか when asking for a description or a characteristic. Finally, you've expanded your vocabulary with many useful adjectives including きれい、にぎやか、静か、有名、おいしい、高い、面白い、古い、and いい。These words will help you describe places, people, food, cities, experiences, and many other things in everyday Japanese conversations. As practice, try describing your hometown, your favorite restaurant, or a friend using some of the adjectives you've learned today. You can also ask questions like この街はどうですか or どんな人ですか The more you use these patterns, the more natural they will become. Thank you for studying with me today. See you in the next Minna no Nihongo lesson. お疲れ様でした。